Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 48 of the Simpa Life podcast. I am unfortunately not joined again this week by Mr. Maka. He is out in the wider world, enjoying himself, no doubt climbing mountains, swimming oceans, and riding around on his little bicycle. Do wish him all the best of luck wherever he is and whatever he's doing. Great to see all the love shared in the comments in previous episodes. So thank you very much for that, folks. I'm sure he greatly appreciates it. Today's been another wonderful day. Sparse bit of scarce bit rather of sunshine has appeared in Durham, so went out to the botanical gardens, had a wonderful wander around all the plants and exotics. It was a shame that some of the creature cages, rather the greenhouses, were closed, so we didn't get in there, but we did get to wander around quite a lot of international flora, some of which was from the native land of our guest this evening. There you go, a wonderful little side segue there from my ramblings into tonight's episode. Our guest this evening is amongst other things, the social media coordinator for the Venus Project, which is a non-profit dedicated to creating a peaceful and sustainable global civilization through the introduction of a resource-based economy. That's a bit of a crass kind of butchered introduction, but we'll discuss further as the episode goes on. She's also currently running for mayor in Camden, New Jersey in this year's upcoming election in a few weeks now.
Yeah.
Is Jenniffer A. Huse. How are you doing, Jenniffer?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you very much for recording, and I'm going to let the folks behind the scenes see this. For the second time today, I screwed up and forgot to hit record again. Maka, I miss you, brother. You taking charge of this, watching all the little bars and all the lights and all your Star Trek ship that you had going on behind the scenes that made all of this run so smooth. We miss you, brother. But yeah, so thank you very much for joining us and for making the time, and now slightly, I suppose, a little bit more time for us this evening.
Yeah, no problem at all. It was a lot of interviews for the Venus Project and just for different things. So don't worry about it. I try to always leave a little extra time in the beginning and the end because we never know what will happen with technologies.
Well, that I am grateful for, and no doubt our listeners will be, because I'm sure they're going to be quite interested, because the majority of people that I spoke to didn't know what the Venus Project was. I thought people would react with excitement when I was like, I have somebody on from the Venus Project. So could you give us a brief sort of introduction or overview of kind of what it is for those of my listeners and viewers that don't know?
Yeah, that was actually a good introduction that you gave before. It's a nonprofit organization focused around social system design. The designs that come out of the Venus Project has to do with being for all people. That's a big thing is that the designs are for everyone. So we don't have an exclusive group of people in mind for these, and they all also center around not just all people, but making sure that we repair and preserve the planet that we all share. So Venus Project was founded by Jacques Fresco and Roxanne Meadows. Jacques worked on these ideas and designs for about 80 years. And he worked on them for a long time. And then about 40 years ago, Roxanne started helping him. And really, for the most part, it was just the two of them for a very long time, with occasional people. And of course, Jacques would have, group discussions, weekly group discussions and things like that. But it really, as far as people working on it, it was just the two of them for a very long time. They, worked jobs and they built a research center. They actually bought some land in Florida, again, I think about 40 years ago. And it was a flat tomato field. And what they did with those 20 acres was they used it as an example to show how we could transform things. So they took that flat tomato field and, they planted different species of trees and dug lagoons and did all these different things. And now it's really like just a tropical jungle type setting, but and it was just amazing what they were able to do. And then they took that opportunity to build some of the designs that they had. To the best of their ability. Again, the Venus Project, for the most part, now that it's started to get a little more recognition lately and things like that, there have been some donations and things like that, but for the most part, it really was all just funded by Jacques and Roxanne working. So they did whatever they could in their budget. There's a lot of other things, of course, that they would have liked to try, and in addition to it also, but they were able to build about 10 buildings there. So the research center has been there about 40 years now. And actually, we had a Category 5 hurricane hit the research center directly. So this was just very recently. It was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I forget which year. So normally that would, obviously devastate everything kind of in its path. But one of the things that the Venus Project has worked on is disaster-resistant designs. Because this is a science-based organization, they've known for a while that we're going to be having increasing problems with disasters, and even barring any increase to it, just looking at what we've had and how much disasters affect the area, how much it costs, how much disruption to lives, and things that it does, they wanted to work on that anyway. So the designs that we have at the research center are actually in domes. Most homes have pitched roofs or flat roofs. And what happens with that when there is high winds is that it can allow for that house to be ripped, right apart. So what happens with the domed roof, it has nothing to do with just trying to stand out architecturally or anything like that. We don't have any designs that are just to stand out architecturally. They all have a purpose behind the design. So what it is with the domed roof is that when the wind hits it, it tucks the wind back up inside itself, so it can't grip it. It can't grip the house and rip it apart. So, so all the buildings survived. All the trees were ripped out and thrown everywhere, but the buildings all survived in the research center. So that was good. And just the materials that we use, we don't use woods for many reasons. Obviously, one, we don't want to be chopping down trees. Wood can also rot. It can get mildew. Bugs can eat it. It can light on fire. So the materials that we use are to try to prevent any kind of rot, any kind of bugs, fires, anything like that. So so that was an interesting test, because in all those years that the research center has been there, we haven't had a direct hit from a hurricane. So they did, but and also the United Nations awarded the Venus Project in 2017 for the designs, basically for Jacques' lifetime work and commitment to a better world. So that part helped get a little more mainstream attention, once the United Nations did that award, was helpful for people that may have been skeptical about some of the concepts of it or things like that, that did help. So again, it's basically The idea is to be putting in social system designs that are oriented around people on the planet, instead of putting in things that are oriented around profit to the detriment of people on the planet. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the main components of the designs. Yeah.
Interesting. My brain's trying to ask about 14 questions at once. So I'm trying to select which one I kind of want to go for. So I just quickly DuckDuckGo'd as an alternative there to the conglomerate of Google. Jacques, and he was born in, well, basically the end of the First World War. And I do remember one of the first times I saw him speak in something that wasn't produced by the Venus Project. And he spoke of growing up in the deprivation of the Great Depression in America was what kind of taught him, or really like where he cut his teeth, as it were. And he understood that the greed and the desperation of humans wasn't necessary. There was resource. There was enough things. The logistics, the systems of transportation and of distribution and allocation were simply not there.
Yeah. The Great Depression had a big, profound impact on Jacques' designs and the way that he thought. And this was still in a basically early 1900s for the most part. And he saw that going through it, people weren't able to have food, and they weren't able to have clothes, and they weren't able to have things that they needed, but that stuff was still in the stores. It was just that there was an interference factor because they didn't have this money, which is a tool that we invented to try to make our lives easier, instead of bartering this and, okay, I'm going to walk over 3 goats for you so I can have, these bushels of whatever or however, kind of things. And so these currencies were invented to make trade and different things easier. But that arrived out of a scarcity-based system. When we didn't have a lot of things or a lot of ability to make things because we didn't really have a lot of technology or anything like that. So that being said, when Jacques was looking at everything, in the Great Depression, he saw that the things were there. People needed food, and the food's there, but they will throw it out because it rotted before they're giving it to people because of this not having this money. And so he started to see that really money had really started to turn into an interference factor instead of a help anymore. And this was back in the early 1900s still, when our technology was nowhere near what it is now. But even then, we still had this interference factor. Now, as everything has progressed and our technology has built up more and more, we can make all of the stuff that we need. This is not this thing that Jacques had seen of money being an interference factor is just more increased. You see houses sitting vacant, and then people sleeping on the streets because they have no houses. You see food being thrown away and people starving. You see people that don't have a car, or transportation, and these cars are just sitting in lots. There's so many examples of it. Not to mention the interference factor that it is, but it's, I say interference factor, but that can be very dangerous and very deadly. It's not like, a person just doesn't have money to get some kind of thing that they want that may not be vitally necessary. I mean, we're talking about having a house over people's heads. We're talking about them having food, like, or access to medicine, and things like that, where, we have the doctors, we have the medicine, but again, maybe you don't have this money, or something like that. So it's very dangerous that we have operating systems which are continuing to operate more on the side of profit. This profit is at the center of how we operate our society, instead of having us at the center of society and people's needs, and having the planet at the center of it. That's the other factor, is that there's not as much regard for the planet, and making sure that we are doing things in a way that doesn't hurt the planet or people, because we keep putting this profit at the center of our operating systems.
It's an interesting kind of destructive kind of mechanism, in that the introduction of tokens or a totem, something in which you could hold value to exchange between two things that weren't given equal worthiness, makes sense. But then in a space where you have scarcity, you create a sliding scale of value. So the thing that there is very rare of, like gems and gold and whatever else in the world, we value that higher because of its scarcity. Whereas the things that if they can function and they are rare, then they should have a higher value. But if it is, say, what we're doing now with lithium, for example, we can produce, alternatively, cannabis graphene. So that's cannabis paper injected with graphene ink, which then compressed together can create supercapacitors, which have a higher efficacy than lithium. But we don't need children to die in their thousands every year in Africa and South America and Asia to mine this shit.
Exactly.
So it's I think one of the things that Jacques really wanted to push was this, and the kind of one of the narratives that I think really resonated with me when the first time I discovered any of this kind of in my own sort of individual research, was we need to understand the limits of the planet. So actually not for some sort of dystopian thing of going, we need to cap the number of people and control, but none of that. We needed to look at the actual ability. How much space per capita can a person occupy healthily? How much then will allow them to have a good mental health and a good ability to be part of that community, rather than just warehousing people and giving them enough nutrition so that they'll serve a power system that will trade their labor for enough tokens to get enough pacification from the reality that they live in.
Exactly.
Whereas, so I think that unfortunately it's very much been branded heavily as a socialist sort of thing. And in the UK, we have a very different relationship than I suppose America does with socialism, because it's slightly less binary. Our media is slightly less binary than American politics typically tends to go, well, you're either for the free market, or if you're anything but less regulation for these boyos, then you're a socialist. Whereas in the UK, because we have a socialist healthcare system, because we have a socialist benefit system, hell yeah. I've been in and out of this system for my mental health for the better part of 3 decades.
That's glorious. That's wonderful.
So yeah, if I'd have to pay for this at each point, I wouldn't have had any of these access to service. The same with, I mean, I've been watching and doing research on like public housing recently in the UK. So at one point when we started this after the Second World War, it was basically, it was the health minister in the UK, not a housing minister. No one else went, in order for our boys to be able to go to the front line to fight, they need to come from homes that they have nutrition, they have a good bed, they have a stable roof, you know what I mean? And they were sending soldiers from the slums that by the time they arrived at the front lines couldn't fight. So they started to then, if it was the worst of reasons, but it led to a revolution of, at one point, I think it was even a conservative politician who was the housing minister at the time, built 200,000 homes in the UK, which is a massive amount. We're down to about 6,000 they built a couple of years ago. And they were like, oh yeah, because the need of that greed is it's leaked into everything else. And again, I think one of the things that the Venus Project pushes into Jacques' vision, grand vision, was to remove that gameplay, that blood sport, that element of I'm better than you and I have more and look at all my stuff that I hoard, and this propensity towards, I suppose, for lack of a better way of describing it, peacocking. of this need to show off to each other, to placate our own insecurities that are actually created from a sense of, are we spiritually enough? Are we enough in our community? Are enough of a friend, enough of a good person, really? And we try to go, well, if I just get enough money, if I get 2 cars, I've got this bigger house, that's a measure of me being good in society. And I think that warped view of it is something that was the life goal of Jacques. And I think that it's kind of poetic and kind of sad in a certain way that it's because of ecological collapse and climate change, they're having to really seriously look at visions and ideas like this of going, okay, we could maybe have a capitalist system, but it's ring fenced. It only exists within luxury goods, or it exists within things that are non-essential. So you've got governments all over the world very quietly looking at what happens if we nationalize our water, because otherwise we're going to have to go to war and have deals like we've had with the Saudis or whoever for oil over water. It's getting sort of scary, whereas the technology that is proposed under the Venus Project and similar ideas is localism. So instead of import, we'll get our fresh water from Canada and get it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we did that in the 1800s. They used to literally ship giant blocks of ice into the desert in America and store them, and then so they had ice.
Yeah.
They didn't have the technology to freeze it. Whereas now we have the technology to purify water. We have the technology to desalinate water. We have the ability to capture rainwater.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so many components to it. And, again, he started working on this like 80 years ago. And it's like, you look at it like, oh my God, we could have had this, already has this. But, and he knows, and Roxanne knows, and, we know, obviously not everyone alive today has only seen a monetary system for the most part, unless you are in a tribe, like a remote tribe. Some they still exist and they don't use currency. They kind of just operate off of, okay, we caught fish, here's fish for everybody. But that's rare. So and it was the same thing in Jacques' time. That mostly everybody had only seen this system. So you're born and you're taught this from the moment that you're born. And, people think that that's the way that it has to be. They look at money almost as they look at, air and water and, essential things, whereas this is, it's hard for them to look at the fact that this is actually a construct and an invented construct that that we made, and we can make new systems also. So but it all arrived out of these real scarcity. There used to be real scarcity just trying to survive and things like that. So these competitive operating systems developed out of that because there was scarcity. So it was like, okay, it was sort of dog eat dog kind of stuff, but now the only scarcity that we have is invented scarcity. We don't have scarcity anymore. We have the ability to provide these things for people right now. As we already have enough houses for everyone. I think it's roughly, at least here anyway, we have about 7 vacant houses for every homeless person. Like, do they maybe need a little bit of work to fix them up? Yeah, sure, they do. Guess what? We have people that know how to do that work. Like, that's not like, we already make more than enough food to feed every single person that's starving. We have, plenty of water. Although we don't have it in certain areas, there are still people that have drought and fire and things like that because the resources are not being managed properly. It's not that we don't have them, it's just that they're not being managed correctly. And now we have these pressing issues, like, when you look and you hear in the same day or within a few days of each other that one part of the world is flooding and one part of the world has drought, or not just one, a bunch of places are flooding, and these other places have drought and wildfires. which are resulting of not having enough water. So you have floods, which is too much water. And then you have, droughts and wildfires, which is not enough water simultaneously, which means we need to get that water over to the areas that need it. And that can be done. Like you said, we have desalination. We can take the water out of the salt out of this water, and we can do large scale irrigation projects and run that water to the areas that don't have the water. And that will help multiple things. That will help with the rising ocean levels and the storms, and that will help take care of, the fires and the drought. And that's just one thing we can do that helps all that.
Yeah, massively. I mean, there's a sort of a few things I wanted to comment on with that. In the UK, I actually looked at this the other day because I've started watching, I think his name is Kevin MacLeod, I think is his name. That sounds wrong. I might be mixing him up with the other guy from Grand Designs in the UK, but he's did a lot of documentaries about council housing and about housing and sort of things. And off the back of that, did some sort of research. And in the UK, it's 3 point something houses per homeless person in the UK. Yeah. So, I mean, we're obviously a vastly smaller space and more densely populated, I suppose. I mean, you can literally fit the entirety of the UK into your average state several times over. So
it's big,
But it's interesting that you bring up the point as well of it is a logistical issue. So we've actually arrived at a point that neoliberalistic capitalism has got such a stranglehold on the world that Dubai. Is it Dubai I'm thinking of? I want to get this right. No, it was China, wasn't it? They've literally been making their own rain to deal with droughted areas. They've been cloud seeding. It was I've
heard of cloud seeding.
It was in Forbes earlier this year. I'm going to make a note to put it in the bio below, guys. Forbes cloud seed.
I've heard of cloud seeding. Yeah. I don't know where they were first starting it though. And one of the desert areas, I thought.
But how much of an insane distance is there between these two things that we have all of this water, but to move it costs money. So therefore we're not going to do it. So then we'll create excess water, but not then control where it goes. I mean, look at the Romans, they figured this out a long time ago, the aquifers, these wonderful, amazing pieces of architecture. And they knew that a city could not operate. It could not thrive. You couldn't have a class or a caste system. You couldn't have a hierarchical society unless you in some way made them survive, allowed them to survive through nutrition and through water and through basic shelter. And
nobody to control if everyone dies because they don't have food and water.
But we've ended up in a weird world where now in North America, vast amounts of land are being bought up by billionaires. You've got nuclear bunker sites that are being turned into billionaire survival shelters. You've got whole swaths of people across the world preparing for a zombie apocalypse. You've got people are so aware that everything is collapsing and screwed, but the wall of the idea of everything has to be monetized and everything has a cost and must be paid, that we're kind of screwed. And it is this, I don't know, this race to Armageddon, it feels in some form, that actually money has become God and God will protect them. So as long as I've got enough of God's praise, which is money, it doesn't matter if the world's on fire. Is my house on fire? Have I flooded? No, then it doesn't matter. Is there water?
And if mine does, I can just go to a bunker. Or
I can buy another. That's the illusion of it. But the monetary system that we've created now, especially in America for the past 80 years, has been a fiat currency. It's not backed by anything. Neither is the UK. The UK is technically a private corporation since we went bankrupt in 2008. Technically as a consequence of what bankers in the States were doing, but a lot of the places did. Australia went bankrupt.
Isn't most things a consequence of what bankers in the States are doing?
Arguably, yes. In fact, provably, yes. No offense to bankers. I know there were some of you guys out there that maybe not the worst people in the world. I know how money is blinding. I know how the idea of having more shiny new things to play with is a driver, and having your needs and every want and whim met. I can get that, and I'm not against you. I'm just not necessarily for you at this point.
It's really a lot of times you can see how much of an interference to things the monetary system actually is, especially increasingly so. But, because you can just tell by, when you say, you make a suggestion, let's do this to improve people's lives or improve the life of the planet or something like that. And it's like, well, how are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like we know how to do it now. Back in other times, older times, there was a multiple reasons for the scarcity. There was not the resources, there was not the technology to make the resources, and there was not the information. People didn't even know how to do it yet. Now we have all that stuff. If anything, it's even interfering with our technologies and our improvements, because we may know how to do something again to greatly improve life, and it's like, well, how are we going to pay for it? But people are asking these questions, how are we going to pay for it? And really, even if you start to actually get in there and look at the numbers, we can pay for it, because it's so expensive to keep doing things the wrong way. Like for example, when you just look at the current natural disasters that we have, like here we have, FEMA, for example, which is like our federal disaster, response help. And my father used to work for FEMA. I volunteered with FEMA to go to, disaster sites, all these different things. And the thing is, they go, you're in an area where there's a lot of hurricanes or tornadoes or something like that. And you have these homes that are designed a certain way. They're designed with wood, with these flat roofs or triangle roofs or whatever. And these winds come through, they decimate everything. So they take all this property loss, they hurt people die, they different things from it. And then you get these grants to go in and rebuild the same exact type of house in the same area over and over. And like, maybe they'll raise the house up on stilts now if it's like a flood area or something like that. Like maybe you get like a little bit of that. But the money that is spent year after year after year, when you could put disaster resistant buildings and not have to deal with this and stop it right there, instead of this, annual or semi-annual or thing. I was looking up just in the United States alone, the unplanned wildfires, because there are planned fires that they have for certain things. So unplanned wildfires, they spent $371 billion annually just on the wildfires that they don't plan. And, so if you were to put more of the desalination plants on the coast and then do the irrigation to take the water over to where we need so that everything is not so dry and so brittle. I think the most expensive desalination plant that we have right now is $2 billion. And you can get ones for much, much less than $2 billion.
Yeah, it's restrictive technology, isn't it? Because it's a lot of it, unfortunately, is actually owned by the energy companies. So I'm a writer. I write for quite a few publications. Actually, one of the magazines I write for is published in quite a few US states, is a Weed World magazine. And I wrote a concept idea for them talking about the desalinization plant of the future. Graphene is an amazing property. When you run salt water over it, it generates energy. Yeah. You can make carbon nanotubes out of cannabis-derived graphene, so we don't need to go again to composites. We don't need to mine for anything. We can use it from the waste of what we're all getting high and enjoying the flowers. All of this in America, because of the laws, is going in mulch. Yeah. If you legally produce flowers, you are not allowed to process this stuff. Whereas you can make it into these carbon nanotubes. You would then exactly that, run the water through it, creating the energy to desalinate it, then actually use turbines through wave technology, through literally the tidal power, which is infinite because of our wonderful moon. That then helps booster up the energy of it, that you can then pump it onto mainland, as you say. If you're then doing that, companies like Nestle, you could remove their contracts from Northern California. The sheer volume of water that they're pumping out every day. And now even the cannabis industry that I love, because of mass scale industrialization through the corporate takeover of cannabis, They're diverting waterways that are destroying areas of unbelievable beauty. I've been lucky enough to drive through Northern California and spend a couple of weeks up there. And I was just blown away by it is a next level of just a haven. And to see it burn on the news year on year since I've been, and every year before I'd been, is a travesty. And to look at this city of LA and what it represents to the world of media, of this excess, of this abundance, this affluence of humanity, and then to see the state that it's in, the state that it's in, year after year, is burning, drought, and it shows that we're moving. It feels into this world where the digital space is far more important. We're now, again, the influence of this moving into cryptocurrencies. You know, so farming of that is then detrimental to environmental consequences. Yes, it may help with some forms of social mobility, but actually to understand it and to truly be able to prosper in it, you need to have come from that kind of industry already. So it's then being used as another predatory pool for vulture capitalists to pick off the corpses of eager young people wanting to throw thousands of pounds at the next big thing, because we none of us really want to be rich. None of us want all the money. What we want is what it affords us, the comfortability. I'm lucky enough to know people of all spectrum of this. I've grown up incredibly impoverished and lived lots of sides of life, but I know people that we go out to restaurants and they throw down hundreds of, I'm watching, just literally order whatever you like, everything comes in, it pays for the entire table kind of thing, and they don't even think twice about it. And I'm literally going, you've just spent probably 6 months worth of my food budget and you didn't even look at it. You didn't even look at the receipt. You just signed the thing and let it walk away. And it's just the spectrum of that. I understand that, again, I'm not anti them. They are in that position because either they've earned it, or even if they haven't earned it, they have been dealt the hand they were dealt. And I think that, again, it's this system of a lack of logistical and political will, I guess, as well. And politics has become a very dirty word because it just basically means fighting nowadays. All it means is binary debates. Well, I think more blue, so I'll be blue team, you be red team. And let's just scream at each other until we hate each other, rather than actually discussing. There is far more in the spectrum of that rainbow between us that unifies us than the tiny minority of things that they artificially inflate to divide us. And I think money plays is the crux, the most powerful tool, because it motivates us. Poverty motivates you. The strongest motivator in the world is an empty stomach. Whether that's to commit a crime to feed yourself, whether it's to then go and get a respectable job and be part of that system or do whatever. And I didn't mean to do that so derogatorily to people within the mainstream, but I live quite an alternative life. But I mean, however you have to do to survive that system.
Yeah, no, but why do we have operating systems that allow us to starve? You know, so I know what you mean. You know, why are we putting these anymore? Why are we allowing for this anymore? You know, but we're in a transition phase right now, you know, where people are learning about different opportunities. You know, we have global communication that we never had before, you know, that we can speak to. I'm speaking to you right over in the UK right now. You know, these things, we didn't have that to connect to other people and learn more about other people and, you know, learn that we're all the same. We're all people, you know, and we need the things that we need. Well, you know, and just switching back to what we were saying about the desalination, just, you know, a lot of times people throw out there, like we said, that, you know, how are we going to get the money for this? But even operating in a monetary system, it, again, would save money. This is the thing too, putting it in these systems where you don't have these reoccurring costs. If you put in the desalination and the irrigation, then you're not going to have $371 billion annually anymore of the wildfires going forward, because you solve that issue, you know. So we really have to switch. And like you said, for politics, and especially now, again, this is my first run. You know, but I've always seen the other side of politics, obviously being an activist, you know, but I can see, not just from in the United States, you know, different things here, but around the world, if people look, and you know, and it's hard, people are busy, they work all the time just to survive, they're tired, they want to spend a little time with their family or do something fun or anything like that, you know, and sometimes people don't look outside of what's directly going on with themselves as much. But if we can look, around our country and look around the world at areas, even in a monetary system, when you don't have it be so capitalistic, where you don't have, you can look at these countries where the quality of life is much better for people. Because they have things in place like healthcare, they have things in place like school is paid, you can go to school, without having crushing debt, where again, you can go to the doctor without having crushing debt. We have 66% of our bankruptcies here in the United States are medical. Like, you get sick, even with people that have money, even with people that have health insurance, it doesn't even always, kick in all the way. So you can lose, what you worked for just because you got sick. Why do we have these systems in place? There are plenty of countries that you can never go bankrupt from being sick ever, because, they have social systems built in. And so, all we have to do is really look at these improvements around the country where there are politicians that care and they are putting in stuff, look at around the world, and just try to keep improving, and it can be done. And if people try to act like it can't be done, then they don't have enough information. Because if you want to make a difference as a politician, you can.
There's actually, I wrote down a quote earlier because it's something that kind of stuck with me, and that just kind of reminded me onto it. So it's just a quote from Jacques Fresco. So if you think we can't change the world, it just means that you're not one of those who will.
Yeah.
And I think that that isn't necessarily an egoic thing. It's not then saying that, these people are better or worse than anybody else. I think everybody in some small way creates the reality we live in the wider society, in the same way that drops create the ocean. Water is broken down in that way to its individual molecules. Sure. And I think that what we're starting to see is this idea of trying to get beyond the binary debate. Is it capitalism or is it socialism? Is it a monetary system? Isn't it a monetary system? And I think that it almost needs to be a spectrum in between, where you can have that blood sport at the top, as long as the consequences of their failures, of their gambling, doesn't destroy the lives of those on the bottom. So you almost need a socialist bottom and a capitalist top. Whereas what we currently live under is a capitalist bottom and a socialist top. Because once you have enough money, you don't pay tax. Once you have enough money and you become so powerful, you have such influence, the law changes for you. You lobby governments around the world, you create deals and networks. And so once you're in those upper echelons, it's self-protecting. You don't even, if you then look at the Sackler family right now, if Purdue Pharmaceuticals, that are able to just slide with all of these court cases over to another sector of the company, allow that to go bankrupt and walk away with their profits. Mm-hmm. The systems are sick. Whereas then if you were caught dealing meth or ecstasy or anything like that in an average Western country, do you think you'd be able to just, no, these were made from other things, I'll put this, no, they would use asset forfeiture to steal everything you've ever owned, whether you could prove it or not. And it is that we need that flipping of that system. I think that safety net, if there was a social safety net, call it whatever you want in terms of the pre-existing ideologies, I think we need an evolution in conceptual thinking beyond this or that. It needs to be a coexistence of multiple systems that serve the multifaceted needs of people around the world. As you say, this globally connected culture now means that developing nations around the world that are suddenly getting access to high-speed internet are having real impact in terms of giant scams and things like this, in terms of their corruption of social media platforms and things like that. I mean, I get literally, every time I put a post on Instagram now, 5 or 6 promoted on, and they tag then a famous website, or I get it in my inbox 6 or 7 times a day. People going from a 0 account, as in no followers, no nothing, going, I represent this brand in this company. Would you like to? And it's from people all over the goddamn world. Then my emails fill up again with SEO optimization from people all over the world. It's everybody is being constantly bombarded from all angles. It's so the necessity to make money to survive. If you can't do it with the resources in your physical realm, you turn to the digital world. And increasingly, the internet is becoming a manifestation, a representation of the worst aspects of human nature. There are pockets of decency and good out there, but because they're not profitable, they're deprioritized by algorithms. They're shadow banned, they're blocked. It's controversial content that is not going to make our investors money or our advertisers revenue, so we will not be doing it. We live in this very, very weird world where the fictitious world that we have envisioned and created through technology that was supposed to liberate and free us has enslaved us into a new form of kind of matrix, I suppose, in that it is an installed operating system, as you say, that is the digital Plato's allegory of the cave. If you know what I mean, with the guys with the sticks holding up above the fire to cast the shadow of the people in the cave. And they become so transfixed with the images and the narrative that is presented to them, they forget of the outside world. They live only of this reality. And that now means that you're seeing it in the way the people, you can see people who prioritize their digital life over their real life from the way they'll present themselves in the real world, the way they'll interact. They're losing social skills. They're losing even the desire and want to be around other humans. Anxiety, social anxiety, depression, multitude of mental health conditions that are being diagnosed at an exponential rate, especially since the global lockdowns and the pandemic and everything. I think part of that is the comfort of the hijacking of this technology that we hold in our palms of our hand. Even the technology that we're talking on now, Zoom, for example, became so vastly globally popular, but now there is entire textbooks written on how to deal with Zoom fatigue. There are divisions within companies trying to ensure that people are not burning out from using this technology because it is a connection. We're talking right now, but we're not communicating in the same way we would if we were physically together. There's a wonderful project in America which is called Heart Maps that discovered the resonance of the human heart, and they found the synchronizing of human heartbeats when they're in close proximity, in the same way women's menstrual cycles seem to coalesce together over a period of spending time together. You know what I mean? So it is quite an interesting thing that we're missing a certain thing. We're presenting data and fact to each other constantly, but to understand what it means is very difficult. My missus got a text earlier, which literally was sent in here's a positive thing, but because of her sort of mindset at the time, she read it as a negative thing. And we had this conversation of going that it's Schrodinger's meaning, that until if you were sat with this person and they'd said that to you, you'd have read their facial expressions, their body gestures, the way they were sat, even that sense of heart, I call it horror, but instinct, that you can feel somebody's presence, and you can feel when somebody's being off with you. You can feel all of it. We call it, it's pseudoscience at the minute. It's not really being studied, but there is these intrinsic sense that I think that's what's awkward to people. They'll spend all day talking to them online, but as soon as we're together, we're connecting on a physical level, and that is making them uncomfortable because they're out of practice. And I think that another thing the Venus Project tried to include was it was social inclusive. So it's creating spaces that were livable, inhabitable, communal areas, whereas capitalism's incentive over the past century, especially in Britain, has been to privatize common areas. In America, I discovered that loitering is the act of being in a public place without spending money. I traveled around 6 states, did 6,000 miles over 6 weeks. And I went all over the place, drove to Hemfest and spoke there. And I went to all the dispensaries and stuff. And I discovered everywhere I was a criminal. Because I didn't own a home or rent a property, I couldn't smoke weed. The hoteliers, however, told me if I pay them $250 and pay the smoking fine, I can do what the fuck I like.
Wow.
So it was a weird kind of thing. But then walking around in public parks and stuff like that I've come to this park to smoke a joint. So then I'm looked at, potentially there could be an issue there. And then everywhere I went, unless I was, say, sitting outside of the motels even, because I was a patron of that premises, I was not bothered. But I literally saw cops harass people that would just sit on a curb sort of side that we in the UK would just call it chill on a corner.
Yeah. If you're homeless, you can't even sit down, lay down. Or homeless people have to just keep endlessly walking, endlessly going.
They've done the same in the UK with sort of travel laws. We have a big, predominantly, I suppose, Irish, but also other ethnic rooted traveling communities. So individuals that choose to live nomadically, they live collectively in gatherings of families, and they sometimes they do set up sort of campsites, as in they own, you call them trailer parks in America, sort of caravan parks over here, and they'll own them, allow other sort of people to live on them so they can earn a wage. But then there's a heritage, there's culture. They will go and they will travel to like horse fairs and things like this, and they will pass on to their kids their culture. They are so heavily criminalized because the system deems them as a financial burden and loss. We're not making money from you. We're not going to make money from you yet. If you get sick, we've got to pay for you. If you then need a requirement of police or whatever, we've got to pay for you. And I think that, again, that's a logistical problem. Rather than going, okay, we've got people that don't want to, for whatever religious, personal preference, community history and heritage, don't want to live within our confined version of normal reality. We want to criminalize them into it. So in the UK, it's illegal to camp. You can't stay overnight technically in the public area. The worst you'll do is get moved on, and trespass in the UK is considered a civil offence. So you'll only ever at worst end up, I think, with a fine. I think is about as far as you can go with it. But then again,
still, a lot of people can't afford that fine.
Then the fine is a compound, because then if you can't afford the fine, you get fined again, then you get summoned if you miss the summons, or you can't then pay the fine. You go to prison, but then it costs them more money to put you in prison. So the problem again is they're trying to coerce conformity and losing billions, trillions. The other point I wanted to raise from before was America alone could save several trillion every year by not having war for resources. So not needing to be in places like Afghanistan to secure 90% of the world's opium trade, not needing to actually be in Middle Eastern countries to secure partnerships and cozy relationships with the Saudis and the United Arab Emirates and places that have the last vast oil reserves on the planet. Again, what we've discussed.
We don't even need to use oil anymore. It's like,
if we actually had grown batteries, cannabis batteries everywhere, in 1 hour. In 1 hour, the Earth gets enough sun to power us for a year. If we can just store that energy. So if we can capture that and store it, we then suddenly don't need energy to be part of the capitalist system. If we then look to what we're talking about with logistics of water, if it's actually just building the infrastructure, and I think part of it as well is going to have to be looking at what is happening with weather modification, because it was a conspiracy theory for a long time, but like I said, it was accepted in the mainstream a few years ago. When they had to start
cloud seeding was accepted.
Yes, because they've modified the term, and as long as they can talk in their language.
Yes, they've weather modification was, everyone was labeled that conspiracy theorist that talked about it, and then they got these, like you said, modified terminologies that they've started to be like, no, but weather modification is okay. See,
they've done the exact same thing with cannabis in the UK. So cannabis is bad, but medical cannabis is good. Medical cannabis is the next marvel. They've just discovered that these wonderful scientists and these venture capitalists have come together for the betterment of human health. And they're going to sell you this product that they've made from a plant that you're not allowed to grow, and you will go to prison if you dare grow it, and you're not allowed to trade. And don't you dare smoke it. You can take a little tincture that we've made, or these little pills. You can vaporize it, but if you combust it, that turns our magic medicine into drugs, and you'll get addicted, and you'll rob your gran, and you'll be on the street, and you'll be a danger to the people. It's such a warped. Again, it's the fear mechanisms and operating systems that they've created as a consequence of fear of loss of capital. Because capital equals control. And I think that's the main problem we have with this is we can't have a post-monetary system
circles back
because it means that they won't have power. So if you can't force a man into working 50 hours a week in a supermarket, just so his two kids can have a roof over their head and just enough to get through, which means that they'll then become career corporate slaves, for lack of a better way of wording it, that then for 40, 50 years, they'll generate wealth for billionaires. We're getting to that point where even the big fish are eating the big fish, so that, I mean, we can't really quantify what a billionaire is. You can think of a millionaire and go, we let you tick over that quite fast. Billionaires in the West, and millionaires are not millionaires, unless I can't remember the number of it, but you've got to hit several million before you can be considered a functional millionaire. That's how fast the inflation of. When I was growing up as a kid, I remember looking at $1 million and thinking, gee, wow. That's the house I ever wanted.
Almost, you know?
Yeah, and inflation has gone up, but resource has remained. It's exactly as we've said. The World Health Organization, I think in 2017, stated that we produce enough food as it stands for 10 billion people. Sorry, I was trying to read something in my head. That's why I went a bit.
We already make plenty of food. And no one should be starving. We don't even have to increase our capabilities, let alone the way that everything is. We could drastically increase our capability of production, and make it a lot better. We don't need to. We just have to get it to people.
But I suppose the issue actually there is
Stop
Oh,
throwing it away.
yeah, I'm trying to think this of the Greek philosopher who said, "Let food be thy medicine." And
Hippocratic
Hippocratic,
oath.
maybe Hippocratus.
Hippocrates.
It might have been Hippocratus. Maybe was his name, and that's where you got the Hippocratic oath from. Yeah, but
Hippocratic.
yeah, basically, I think that then. So if we look at it, I follow this kind of thought train for a second.
Yeah.
If everybody had enough food, everybody would be well. Most issues within the body are caused either from malnutrition or from inflammation. We then know of wonderful substances that, you know, I hark on about plenty on this podcast that can help with regulation of these things. It's one of the only complete proteins in nature. It's seed oil. Cannabis seed oil is a full complete protein. All was it 13 non-essential and 7 essential?
All the
amino acids. Yeah. So if we then took that as a food source, you then infused it, as I'm trying to think of the words that I was using previously to describe this, which I can't off the top of my head, with non-psychoactive, kind of fortified it with non-psychoactive cannabinoids in the same way we fortify grains and cereals with vitamins. Everybody would have their endocannabinoid system supplemented to a point of good health. And they would have access to a minimum nutrition. In the UK, for example, Oliver Twist and please have some more. The more he was seeking was gruel. Gruel in the UK was made from, they called it at the time, hemp seed, and I'm damn fighting against it to call it cannabis. But again, because it was such a cheap and abundant nutritional resource that it then allowed them to exploit these workers infinitum for them to work in a tuppence and feed them crap, basically, but it was nutritious enough to keep them going. So if we then put that with these non-psychoactive cannabinoids, like I was saying, or low psychoactive, or however you want to term it, or the acidic forms of them, so they can't then be converted into active cannabinoids, then that would supplement our systems and basically negate large sections of the medical industrial complex.
Yes, and large sections. I was talking to you about this before we started the interview too, but just about how I've been studying human biology since I was 5. I was a very, very weird kid, and I could speed read by the time I was 3. So, and I was always interested in biology. So I read, nonfiction books, and I was just always at the library, and looking stuff up. So, and then as soon as I could get into studying that in school, and things like that, which is really, really about high school, where you can start to choose a little of your science, stuff, and then obviously college and things too. But it wasn't just, through formal education. I was obviously always reading stuff and studying stuff anyway, aside from that. But, I had no idea the medicinal value of cannabis, not at all. I knew it was good. It seemed to calm people down, if they smoked, or maybe give people energy, whichever, thing you were trying to achieve, or both. Balance, but I had, no idea. And I know that, people still don't know, because they run into it and when I'm out, and I had a personal experience that enabled me to begin to find out how really good cannabis was for you. And I don't know if I would have even known without going through that, personal experience. Who knows? But I had a condition called complex endometrial hyperplasia, which is where you don't shed your uterine lining every month like you're supposed to. When girls get their period and they shed their lining because no baby, don't need to keep it. Okay, so I had not been shedding it, and no one caught it for a very long time. And it caused a whole lot of problems to where the cells had changed in my endometrial lining to become precancers, advanced precancer. So it was one stage before full-blown cancer. And I also had a lot of ovarian cysts and things like that. So the doctors that I had been seeing wanted me to just kind of go this route of cutting everything out, and stuff. And I just it's very fortunate that I had the background that I had, because I did wind up having to go to a lot of doctors. I mean, it was like 40 doctors in 5 hospitals in 2 countries and 3 states. It was very, very intense. And the reason I had to keep going to so many doctors was because the stuff that they were saying was wrong. Like, and I knew that what they were saying is wrong. It was like, they were like, 2 + 2 is 13. So we're going to cut all your insides out. And I'm like, no, wait, 2 + 2 is not 13, it's 4. And they're like, but we have to cut your insides out. And I'm like, but why do you have to cut it out if it's 4? Basically was how it was. And I know from going through that experience now, like, if you don't have a background, which is, it's a horrible shame that we're not teaching kids from kindergarten all of the health information that we have. Things would change immediately if everybody was actually aware of their bodies and knew these things. So they were telling me these different things, and had I not known what I knew, I see how they scare people into these things, into these surgeries and these really toxic drugs and things like that. And, fortunately, I don't even remember now how I came across it, but that I found out that cannabis oil, the really concentrated oils of it, that black, green black one.
Call it FECO, full extract cannabis oil.
Right, that one was working for so many different cancers. And so, I was like, well, okay, and of course, I know that they had concerns because in their line of work and the way that they handle things, they've only seen, okay, well, if it's going to turn into a stage for cancer, it's going to turn into cancer, and then it's going to do this because of the path that they use. But I wanted to try some other things before I went down these irreversible paths, So, it wasn't legal in our state at that time. So we had to leave and go to Colorado, actually, where it's a lot more advanced. And we just fortunately had the money at that time to be able to have, we had our house in New Jersey, we had our businesses in New Jersey. So to have to go to another state, maintain things while you're there is very expensive, let alone what they charge for the cannabis oil, is very, very expensive, what they charge for a plant that everybody should be able to have grow in their front yard or in their house or wherever, because it's a plant. But fortunately, thank goodness, we did. And so, I went out there and I took the cannabis oil, and I went back to the surgeon. I went there for 3 months and did vaginal suppositories and drops by mouth. And I went to the surgeon because they had, an appointment scheduled that if it didn't work, they wanted to do, what they were proposing. And the surgeon couldn't believe I had no unhealthy tissue at all. None, because it was riddled. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go try this. And they're like, okay, kind of like, sure, and it was like, she couldn't believe it. And I had a caregiver while I was out there. The doctor prescribes you a caregiver, and then the caregiver makes it for your specific condition. If I had a skin thing, it would have been a salve, or something like that. The caregiver had another patient that had brain tumor that was so big that it was causing like 130 something seizures a day. And within a month, they were having no more seizures. My sister, she actually has a very rare autoimmune condition. Only 500 people in the world have it. And she was on massive amounts of very toxic drugs. They had her on like 36 pills a day And she came out to visit us while we were out there, and she was able to try the cannabis oil. And on her vacation, just visiting us, she felt better than she had felt in like 20 years. So she moved. She left. She moved. She switched. Fortunately, her job, she's able to work remotely. So she moved out there, and she's off all 36 of these medicines only from having cannabis oil. And so because of that, and because of my background, because really my biggest passion is to make sure that people are healthy, that they have the most quality of life that they can without these sicknesses and illnesses, and the longest quality of life that we can. And that's just been since I was little. That's just the thing that I cared about the most. So and I'm looking at this, like looking at the spectrum of what this medicine actually does, not to mention it's completely non-toxic. These medicines that they use, some of these medicines they use on people have worse side effects than the condition. Yeah. So then when I started looking into it more and more, I started looking into things like Cannabis Science Inc., which is an organization that makes medical applications for the cannabis. So they're making different things like asthma inhalers, because people are under this impression that smoking it or inhaling, getting it into your lungs is unhealthy for you. Yeah. And in fact, they're using it to cure asthma. They're using it to cure COPD. They're using it to cure lung cancer. They're using it for, so I started, I just found this rabbit hole of stuff of what they use it for. They're using it for traumatic brain injury, to repair people's traumatic brain injury. They're using it to wake people out of comas. They have been in comas for years because of the traumatic brain injury, and it's healing their brain. And people are like, well, how can this, plant work for so many things? How can it's getting rid of kids' epilepsy, it's getting rid of all these cancers, it's getting rid of skin problems, it's helping people's blindness. Like, why is it that something like that, there's no way that something could work on that many things? And the reason that it works on so many things is because it's a neurological superfood. So what a lot of people don't understand yet is that our neurological system is actually our operating system of our body, and it controls our other systems. So a lot of people look at subsystems, smaller subsystems like the genetic system or this, or muscular system or something like that. And they don't realize that all of these systems are actually controlled by the neurological system. The cellular signals are what dictates what goes on in our body. If it dictates if there's going to be too much hormones released or not enough hormones released, or if a cancerous cell is, going to just keep replicating because it's not getting the signal when it's supposed to die off, and then it's a tumor, or any of these things. These are all regulated by cell signals, and those come from our neurological system. So the reason that it works for so many different things is that it's regulating these cells. So, cell signals. So we have a signal that's too low for some reason, or too high for some reason, or there's a block, or something like that, or a signal that's going out. It's just a signal that's saying maybe to inflame in a certain spot when you're not supposed to be inflaming. So this helps to regulate them, and then that regulates all of our other systems, and that's why it can work on so many things is because of the system that it works on. And we don't have medicine like that. We don't have medicine that works on a neurological system like that.
Yeah, exactly. With the discovery of cannabinoids in the endocannabinoid system, we have effectively created the death knell for traditional pharmacology. Mm-hmm. Because all we have ever done for the past century, more than, in fact, I would say, is we've created or sought to create single compounds to create to treat single symptoms in conditions. We have not really tried to really cure anything. because as a Goldman Sachs executive spoke to a group of investors around pharmaceutical drugs, said that we are not in the business of cures. They are not conducive to a healthy economy. And so this is true. Cannabis, ultimately, the use of it, because of the impact of not just the cannabinoids, the terpenes themselves as well, the flavonoids and the other compounds, when they are consumed in a full spectrum product, the efficacy of that and what it can do, exactly, it's not a panacea, it is not a cure-all, it is not magic, it is not, unfortunately, what I imagine a lot of your persons, I don't know what the correct term for that would be saying is the work of Jesus. It's God. It's a miracle. And that, again, it detracts from the science of this, which is if the endocannabinoid system is the largest single regulatory system in the body, then working on any part of the car without looking at the engine means the car will never work. So we can make the doors all nice. We can buff out the rough edges and give it a new paint job. We can make the tires work, and why is it not running? And unless we understand and look at that intrinsic system that powers it, we're not going to really move forward. And I think it is that fear of the demise of the control paradigm that, again, it's through financial restriction that it doesn't matter if you are so rich, you can get the best care. But now what we've discovered with cannabis and with entheogenic compounds, or still called to most psychedelics, that these are being co-opted. So it started with Timothy Leary in the States and tune in, turn on, drop out. And now it's Silicon Valley going, microdose LSD, it'll improve your productivity. They're taken from us our ability to utilize these substances as we wish, to develop a relationship beyond their paradigms. I shouldn't, and nobody should have to wait to be sick to consume cannabis. The prophylactic benefit of its consumption, if we live in a world where, say in London, compared to where I live in the UK, there is 40,000 extra deaths a year because of the pollution. Those people should be prescribed these inhalers if you want to continue with that system, or if nothing else, allowed to consume cannabis. Because again, the reason it works so well with the lungs is it's a bronchial dilator. It helps protect the lining of the lungs. So we know the mechanisms by which this works, but we're caught up in old propaganda because smoking tobacco causes lung cancer because of the chemicals they added to it and all of the horrible process that they created to mass market it and manufacture and standardize it. They made a quite benign product very dangerous. Yeah, I worry that's what they're going to do with cannabis, and then as a consequence of that, it gets to push us back to that pharmaceutical system.
Yeah, I worry about that too, and I think that. I think people's mindset is, if cannabis can do all this and it can treat so many different conditions, why was it illegal? Why was it illegal in the first place? And then people are always like, well, smoking weed isn't going to do all that, too. And I'm like, that's because it's not concentrated enough. You need more of it. What we actually need is more of this. Like, we need to be testing each individual person for their illness and see what they need, because each person's going to need their own specific amount to get to their endocannabinoid equilibrium. We should be looking at bringing ourselves to endocannabinoid equilibrium, which we have no test for this yet or anything like that yet, but
there's a good body, sorry to interject, there's a good body of research coming out of Israel where they're basically trying to use data from effectively the Human Genome Project to be able to map what markers would determine what combinations of terpenes and cannabinoids would be most effective. Because if you and I sat and smoked, what am I currently, this is some Master Banana Kush cherry. So the terpenes within this will be some of the more fruity end, which typically are more associated with stimulating effects. So for some people that would smoke that, I get very relaxed and calm and my brain flows very naturally and easily. Some people would smoke that and their brain would speed up. They get very anxious, they get heart palpitations, they get a bit sweaty and a bit nervous. And it's not that the weed is wrong. It's that our endocannabinoid systems are as unique as fingerprints. Yeah. And unless we can get to a consensus with this, and this is where I call it the medical cannabis industrial complex is trying to step in. So they're creating synthetic compounds and patents on. And
that's killing people. The synthetics are killing people. They're actually killing people, whereas this has never killed anyone. Yeah. And, you look at the pharmaceutical companies, and again, obviously some medicines from pharmaceutical companies and things like that have helped people. Okay. I'm not saying that there's been no help out of there whatsoever, this, that, but there's a lot of side effects to a lot of the medicines that come out of the pharmaceutical industry. And this is a medicine that does not kill people. It does not, cause these side effects. The side effects are healing, so, and the synthetics, it's because they're trying to patent a plant. They're trying to be able to patent a plant. And so
continuation of control, isn't it? Ultimately, it's,
yes.
and I think there's a point that kind of just came to mind there, if I can sort of quickly interject, is that I'm really trying in this new incarnation of my life, as it were, to be understanding, empathetic, and to see all sides in this. So the analogy that kind of came to my brain was the image of a kind, caring man at the end of a cliff, ushering people off, and then just going, this is the compassionate thing, and everyone agrees in the culture, and then all of a sudden someone discovers there's a bridge. And we tell them there's a bridge, and you don't have to keep sending people to death and walk around. And some people are discovering the bridge themselves and are slowly crossing, and they're screaming from across the canyon. And we're doing everything we can. But until the mindset of that man that's going, I'm a good person, I am helping, because this is the paradigm we live under. The reason that you were speaking of your friend taking 32 medications is probably she needed 3 or 4. And then the others were to deal with the compounding side effects, and then more side effects. And then because of we've made you lethargic, so now you're getting less exercise, so it's slowing down your metabolism, which means you need to take this. This is affecting blood pressure, so we're going to make you take this. We're going to do it. Rather than just, and again, most of these root causes of things, a big body, again, mainly out of Israel, is really pushing forward with this, because the Americans, part of the foreign aid budget for the past 40 years to Israel has been cannabinoid research, when Raphael Mashalem and his team and that were discovering cannabinoids. Partly funded by America. So then it's all been a slow build to all of this. But I don't think that the body of work that's coming out of there of creating individualized bespoke medications, they're still trying to go from a pharmaceutical route rather than a community healer route of almost somebody coming. If you had somebody with such a vast array of knowledge that was acquired over a lifetime of lived experience with individual plants and understanding the terpenes and the cannabinoids and how they interact, they could actually really educate them and empower the individual to understand how to have that better relationship. But also on the other side of it, if we then suddenly discover that, as I was trying to allude to before, but I kind of sidestepped it, Israel are talking about a concept called, and now it's globally sort of trying to gain ground, of chronic endocannabinoid deficiency syndrome.
Oh yeah,
as being a root cause of like everything from migraines, fibromyalgia, any of these chronic degenerative conditions. And they're using sort of the analogy of scurvy. We're all sailors at sea with scurvy, and we've now discovered citrus fruits and whatever else, but vitamin C. But the system is saying, oh, no, okay, hide this, ink it back to them so we can sell it in drips and drabs, but not enough to ever give them that equilibrium or that homeostasis, that balance. Yeah. Because then if what happens when people are not desperate, when they're not voting out of fear, when they're not living in a small life because I've got 2 plants in the bedroom, so I won't make a noise. I'll watch somebody get assaulted in the street, but I can't ring the police. I'll see my house get broken into, but I've got plants, so I can't get help. You know what I mean? How warped the ideas and the worldviews of these people, myself included, the damage it's done to my psyche, having been a cannabis consumer for nearly 20 years now, is insane. Like the life I could have, and I love my life and I'm very proud to be the way I am and who I am. But again,
I know what
the
you
limitations that have been applied to me and my peers because of their choice of consuming a substance that actually a lot of them now, I've got friends that have stopped consuming cannabis that are suddenly getting diagnosed with health conditions. And I'm like, mate,
get back on
the thing. And I think that if we can push that body of knowledge in one direction and then stop for a second and go, wait, so why the hell are we all deficient? If our bodies produce enough, we can then look at, it's BPAs and BPZs and endocrine disruptors and carcinogens from plastics and things that are in our food, pollutants that are in our waterways, in our soils, in everything else. And again, we need to take that knowledge and apply it back to the cannabis, or else they're going to be selling us cannabis that's one of the best bioremediators in the world. So it will take all of the heavier elements, all of the toxic elements from the soil and put that into the body of the plant. In the UK, this medical cannabis industrial complex is prescribing on percentage of 2 cannabinoids only. They're not talking about terpenes. They're literally, because they're shopping around. So you've got clinics in the UK that are private, basically kind of the first step it was in California in 96, 97, where you can pay the doctor for your right to play. They're then an important product from various offsets of corporations that are being set up. And you can walk around with your prescription going, I'm legal. But they're now having to import it. The UK grows nearly 100 tons a year and exports it, but none of it is allowed to be commercially sold here. We're the world leader in this. So we're now importing from Australia, from Israel and Canada. And then when they run out of that crop, they then pick up the phone and go, have you got a 20% THC, 2% CBD? Sweet, yeah, we'll have it. Without discussing the wider profile of the plant. So you've then got somebody getting, we've had this wicked, to their mind, 20-to-1 ratio, and it's doing wonders, but it's not. It's the combination of the terpenes, the monoterpenes, the sequester terpenes, even the to less to a certain degree, the flavonoids, and all of the other constituent compounds that when cannabis is combusted, I was talking with a chemist, one of my friends who's a chemist the other day about this, we're saying about the increase of efficacy, that actually it's a warped understanding even within the scientific community. The combustion of them is then causing a volatilization within the compounds that's creating a synergy that is having such a profound effect when compared to even vaporization, let alone to then other ingestion methods, that there is something to it, as well as let's use the placebo effect as a loose way of describing it. The act of, I am a combustor. No matter what I do, I will combust, because I love the act of sitting, getting out the skin, the root. That in itself is therapeutic. It's calming. Growing my own plants, nurturing something from a seed to then that end result, and knowing that I've done that for my healthcare, for my betterment, knowing I've removed myself from a criminal marketplace. I'm not helping fund people trafficking, modern day slavery, abuse, other criminality that I would not support or build a platform to fight for. I fight for every drug user. I fight for every person right to do whatever the hell they want with any compound, as long as they are not then harming somebody under the influence of it. And I think that acceptance is so radical. And the same with this idea of then, well, people should just have houses. What do you mean there's homeless people? They should have houses. If aliens came here and they went, so what do humans need? They need food, they need water, they need companionship, they need community, and they need shelter, and they need...
And how?
Basically, Maslow's hierarchy of need, the first rung of that. If you explain that to them and they went, so why the hell has half the world not got it? Why has the other half got so much of it, they can't use it? It's a logistical problem. There is enough cash that we could actually live under a capitalist system. We just have to stop the legal bottlenecks, the tax evasion. I don't want to live in that system. But I think that the world would collapse, I think, unfortunately, if we swung the pendulum drastically the other way. I think the cognitive impact on people would be so drastic. I mean, just look at what happened with lockdowns. People lost their shit because they couldn't go to Starbucks every morning. They couldn't, so all these brand identities that people had developed, they couldn't shop for their Gucci bag. They couldn't do whatever we all do in our small ways to find these forms of personal identifiers in the world and to live that reality. It forced us all into our quiet little concrete cages, that I sometimes term it, to then go, what the hell do we want from this world? And then they press start again. And most of us went, I want Starbucks, I want McDonald's. So it's weird that we've gone for that comfort and that for identity rather than asking ourselves the hard questions. So I think if we basically change the legal operating system, the ingrained behaviors of the populations wouldn't change as fast. So I think there needs to be gradual progression, but that progression has to come with the first step of ending decriminalization for, let's call it otherism, difference, being different. And then that creation of that social safety net that nobody dies from getting ill. Nobody starves to death because they can't afford the sandwiches that Tesco employees are covering in bleach to put in the bins so that people can't get them out.
I mean, what? I know.
I've lived that. That was my job when I worked in retail as part of being the produce team leader for, I didn't technically name them in this sentence, so we're all good for liable.
Of a place.
Of one of the vast supermarkets in the UK.
Some of these places, all these places.
It got to the point that our line managers, they were asking us to ensure that the bins were padlocked because people were going through the bins, and that when we were doing the waste, to smash the waste into the bags. So if you had cream or off milk, to pour that over the fresh produce, over the great packets or all of the things that were perfectly fine, but they're past the sell-by date. Then they got to the point of, they then had basically they gave the contractor who takes the bins a key for their back gate so they could move the bin inside their compound. so it would reduce the people going into the bins. So rather than Tesco making a donation to local food shelters or charities or anything like that, they went to the ends of making someone like me have to literally, and I was talking with other staffers to be doing it, like thinking about this, and like it's
like that's what they came up with. They didn't come up, and not just them. It's not just them. This goes back to the fact that we make enough food for 10 billion people. And
it's not just food. Gucci, for example, were one of the brands who destroys their returns because they can't allow their brand to be cheapened by their being resale market.
Right. Yeah. But that's fine. Because you know what? You don't
It's a luxury good, exactly.
Yeah. Like, fine. And I don't mean
I don't know. There are some wags out there, that wives and girlfriends, as in like football celebrities. They very much need Gucci to live. I see you, ladies. I see you. You're okay.
Sure, but but food. I mean, so it's like you're sitting around. You're the heads of these food chains and this and that, and you're like, hey, so seems like people are breaking into not breaking into, but going into our bins to get food, that we're throwing out. What's the solution to this? And the solution is like pour bleach on it and destroy it instead of let's donate this to food banks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, or some kind of place where they can use it. Let's put those systems in. And it's really rather crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. There's just no real other way to explain it. It's sick.
It's got weirder in the UK since the coalition governments. Let's arbitrary pick 2010 in the UK. So food banks exploded from a couple of 100,000, if I'm pulling the stat out of my ass correctly, to something like 4-point-something million people are now using X amount more of these services. It just went up exponentially, and it's. The idea I've just kind of had there that I'm trying to explore some, this is why I'm kind of a bit slow with this, is that it's to prop up capitalism. So now actually there are food diversion systems in the UK where supermarkets will give their excess produce to these charitable systems so they can then give them to people to feed them. But they're doing this so that the rest of their lowly income can pay their energy bills, can pay their rent, can pay their other capitalists. It's not actually done to remove them from this. It's to free up their little cash that they have left to ensure that they're still paying into the system. Because in the UK, for example, if you're on a meter, which means you have to go with a little key and toddle to a shop and ask them to put money on and have this almost kind of response from people and this classist sort of reaction, you know what I mean? To then go back, you're charged a higher premium. The rate you pay per wattage is more expensive than if you can afford to pay every 3 months that you can allow a couple of £100 to go out. But if you're somebody that's on benefit in the UK, you're not going to see a couple of £100. You see it maybe once on your payment date, and then you pay that bill, this bill, that bill. You pay back the 4 people you've borrowed from. You go buy enough food for a week, and then you're stuck for the next month.
Yeah.
And that again, that's the system, and they're happy with that because look, there's just enough subsidy that they're getting through, they're surviving, and actually it'll make them sick. So then they'll have to. Healthcare is still team in the UK with our system. They've brought in enough private healthcare operators that if you get certain illnesses, you're going straight diverted through this. So you're still making private corporations money. It's actually costing the money and defunding ultimately the NHS. So they've created these systems where they're then buying in then drugs that are then costing the NHS an absolute arm and a leg. So there was a scandal of the NHS of how much it paid for paracetamol. So they were paying tens of thousands or whatever it was for paracetamol that you can buy for pence in a supermarket. The markup was, I should probably look at the stat on this and try and include it. I'm sure it was something in the region of several 100% that they were paying from private contractors. So there's other ways that they've found a way to extract cash from these systems. So yeah, for us, it's good that I can go and pay for £9 for a prescription charge, basically for whatever drug it is. Doesn't matter how much the drug cost. I think it's £9.70 is the current charge or something like that. And that's just, you get that script and you get those drugs. And whatever the doctor prescribes, that's what you get. Doesn't matter the individual cost to it. But then the contracts that are being bid for within the NHS are favoriting more expensive companies because, the backroom deals, they've gone out drinking in their pals or they live in the same street.
Take dinner.
So they then get that. So we had this at the start of the pandemic in the UK where loads of companies and friends of Tories suddenly became PPE companies. The protective what does PPE stand for? Personal protective equipment. There you go. Personal protective equipment. So gloves and masks. So they suddenly started setting up companies, and they got contracts worth billions UK for them to import these products. One guy who was a mate of an MP, they brought in masks that was such low quality. I think they said there was 9 out of 10 of them failed. Quality assurance. And he made tens of millions off contracts for it.
Yeah, it's very hard with this particular virus, just because of the size of the particle of it is very, very small. So, a lot of the masks have had problems, with keeping it entirely restricted. But there's a difference between still if you cough, or you sneeze or whatever, it does help, but
it just shows that the opportunism, to use the Simpsons thing of crisis-opportunity, they saw a crisis and they saw an opportunity within it.
Yeah.
And it's just another way to make money. And I think that's what I worry about with the greenwashing that's going on within industries. So companies now desperately trying to get 100% recyclable or 100% this or renewables or plant-based and all of these buzzwords that they have managed to manufacture. And the same way they do with cloud seeding. They're not talking about, we're talking about dietary overhaul. They're not talking about holistic medicines and taking sovereignty and autonomy of your own healthcare and actually prophylactic measures to deal with the poisons and toxins in our water, in our airways, in our food. Trying to make informed decisions.
And that can all be dealt with. We know how to do it. And it's really. I think you touched on a whole lot of points just now. But it goes back to now we have a lot of information on how to do things. Whatever we don't have, we can basically sit people down and figure it out at this point. If we're so inclined, we have enough brains around the world to problem solve these issues, and even in a monetary system, although again, I advocate we transition out of it, and not just take money out right away and and shock it or, shut the system down, or as people talk about, system crash or nothing like that. That's insane. Of course you don't want a system to crash, what I mean? That would just cause more problems. But, transitioning more and more to problem solving and providing needs and taking care of the planet. And even in a monetary system, when you look around at different countries, more developed countries, where they have better quality of life for their people and things like that, when you put in these systems to have better quality of life, you're more abundant. You do better. Your society does well. If you want to look at everything from a monetary viewpoint, even. When you can take care of the society and take care of people and make sure that they are doing well instead of just squeezing them for every little thing that they have till they die from it, then your society does better, and it does better long term. So this is more long term benefits and things like that. And again, you can look, because all of these issues that we're talking about solving, even if you want to put it politically, you want to look at it, from a campaign right now, say. So, okay, so, and you're looking at it just as a mayor and what a mayor can do in their own city, or a governor can do with their state, or a president or prime minister can do with their country or something like that. You can make changes because you can look and you can see that all these things that we're discussing about housing and education and healthcare and these different things, it's already all being done. This isn't even like original thought that we have to come up with ideas about how to do these things. It's already being done all over the world. So like the bare minimum of what we can do is to put in the best practices that we already have, and then to go up from there. So it's you can't even look at it from a monetary standpoint and be like, oh, you can't do it, because yes, you can. And resolving these issues. I worked on some smaller, reports and things like that for some consulting for political parties and things. And one report we did was just in regard to homelessness, chronic homelessness in the United States. And we did a whole breakdown based off some of these programs that we have here that are ending homelessness, and just using their math and things like that, their equations for it. But we did it across all of the states. Obviously, in some of the more populated states, you have more homelessness because it's more populated. So there was different amounts of homelessness from millions and millions to maybe this one state only has like 1,500 homeless people, and this one has millions. But we did it, and it costs so much more to have someone be homeless than to give them a home and a social worker to help them with like accessing things that they need and stuff like that. It costs so much more with the medical bills and the arrests and the court dates and having to have fines and follow-ups and this and all these things than to just give people it's mind-blowing. So even in a monetary system, if you want to assign a price tag to everything, which I have no desire to assign a price tag to people's lives and health and the planet and things like that, but if that's the way that people want to have that discussion, it was each state was, even the lowest state was saving tens of millions of dollars annually if they housed them and had them have a social worker. Even having to, make sure that there's housing and make sure that there's a paid social worker was so much less than that it was between tens of millions of dollars annually and hundreds of millions of dollars annually that they saved. So you solve the problem and you're saving all this money and actually, providing even more social worker positions and stuff like that, to help take care of people. So, and this is not just, just homelessness. This is a lot of these different issues that we have that even if you want to look at them from, a monetary standpoint, it saves so much money. And your point of decriminalization, of all substances that someone wants, I completely agree. I have decriminalization. I have ending the drug war as one of the bigger proposals that I have for my campaign. And I don't just mean on cannabis. I mean the war on all drugs. On people. Whatever someone wants to do with their own body is their choice. All people should have their own body autonomy, and if they want to, it's their choice. It's their choice what they want to do with their own body, as long as they're not forcing it on anyone else, or doing something like that. Of course, we shouldn't be forcing any kind of thing like that on anyone else. But for someone to choose that they want to consume a certain type of chemical or plant or this or whatever, and for our approach to be that another person is doing something with their own body, and we are going to take that person and maybe beat them, cuff them, kill them. Sometimes they get killed, jail them, rip them away from their family, rip them away from school, rip them away from working, not allow them to get student loans, not allow them to get certain jobs because of something they did with their own body and they didn't do anything to anybody else, and hurt anyone or anything like that, is insane. I mean, it's actually literally insane that we have constructed whole things around this. Yeah. If someone's hurting someone, sure, we need some kind of person to help get that person not to be hurting someone. But it kind of is the same thing again, where that can be solved in a monetary system because there's examples of it. There's examples of cities where they're decriminalizing certain things. There's countries where they've decriminalized everything. Like you can look at Portugal, you can look at these different places, and the money that's being spent on persecuting these people, caging these people, finding these people, all these follow-ups, this, that, you can take all of that money and turn it into support services instead. And these people that are working on oppressing people and dividing people and doing all these things can be retrained to be working in support services and helping people. And, that way, if they want help because they feel like they've gone too far with something, then you help them. And that's it. Literally, that's it.
There's sort of an adage that has developed within drug reform across Europe, or across the world, really, which is you have to meet people where they are. We can't force sobriety. We can't force our lifestyle on somebody. You can't force your decision to not take drugs onto someone in the same way I couldn't force my heterosexuality onto a homosexual person. It's just, it's wrong. We're slowly winning these rights back to be different, to be unusual. I don't mean that in a drug sense. I mean, just different, weird and wonderful, beautiful, creative, to explore what it is to be ourselves rather than living within the rigid confines of narratives and apparatus that have entirely been created, or rather maybe weaponized against us. So whether that be gender conformity, whether it be sexuality boundaries, whether it be sort of the conversations that are going on around sort of sex work, or the war on drugs.
I have that on my platform too, about decriminalization of sex work. Also,
brilliant. It's because it all ties into the same thing, that actually the reform of one is the reform of all. And that's one of the reasons I started this platform, was to be able to show the audience that I developed in the UK and the cannabis consumers that seem to follow me and enjoy my work, that all of these conversations are intimately connected. I mean, you spoke of before of sort of helping people rather than harming them. The last guest I had on a few days ago was Danny Ahmed from a project called Foundations. They're the only specialist GP group in the UK that are prescribing diamorphine, pure heroin. So they have 10 clients on their books that come in twice a day. They get all access to the social services, access to housing, access to general advice, but they're not pushing sobriety. They're giving clean
That's
needle.
Wonderful.
And what they found is somewhere in the region of 60 to 70% reduction in inquisitive crime. So
of course, because a lot of, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but a lot of the problem of what people are doing is not even, it goes back to, they've decided that this, they choose this particular drug or something like that. And what is the real origin of the problems? What if we did just make sure that people could get the drug that they choose, or medicine that they choose, or whatever name that you want to use for it, without having to rob and steal and hide in some corner and risk some kind of laced drug on the street because they're trying to cut it and do this and it has bad reactions or something like that. What if you had it and you knew that batch wasn't going, it was regulated, there wasn't anything that was going to kill you in it. We're getting people are afraid to even go to the doctor because they're afraid, what if I pee a test and there's a medicine, and you should not have to go through that. The oppression a lot of times, this drug ruined their life or something. Is it the drug that ruined their life, or is it the treatment that they got because they do that drug? Because now they're treated like a pariah because they do, heroin, and they have to be snuck off in a corner with a dirty needle and they can't access it, and they're overdosing because there's something in it and this, and they can't get a job, and this and that. We really have to look at the origins of these things and start problem solving them instead of, just doing these archaic ways of looking at one another with these perspectives. Like they're, they're different. They choose to do something different than me. So now we're divided, and I look at them, like they're trash and can be abused or
I think the reaction of anger is the manifestation of fear. Fear is ultimately a lack of knowledge or awareness. So I think that in the same way there's a backlash still, massive, not so much within sort of gay and queer communities, but in trans communities. You've now got a thing called, TERF, trans something radical feminists, that are basically just a group within not neo-feminism, but classic feminism, that are basically trying to exclude trans women from the conversation. And there are sort of these victories being won back in areas, as I've said, but it's still not the ultimate thing, which is that just because I do not understand you does not mean I should be in any which way against you. I should, if I'm a good person in a just world, be able to be curious of you. Your difference should be exciting to me because it's novel and new. We should be able to remain childlike with wonderment to the multitude of expressions of humanity that manifest in each of us. It is a beautiful thing to meet another person. I mean, I've spent a lot of time on the festival scene and free parties and illegal raves and stuff like that. And the people you meet are so weird and wonderful, and the variety of knowledge and of potential solutions to these issues, because all they do is sit around, not sit around all day. I'm not saying that again derogatory. I mean that when they're together, all they really are doing is putting the world to right. Same as you are, same as I do. That anyone that will hear will go, this is a problem. Here's all these solutions and these ideas. And because we're criminalized by association, it brings me back to the quote from John Ehrlichman, the Richard Nixon advisor on the war on drugs, speaking to CNN in, I think, in the mid-90s. And he said that basically with the war on drugs, that we associated cannabis with the hippies and anti-war left and blacks with cocaine, and that we could criminalize them night after night on the evening news. We could demonize them, break up their communities, and basically just stop them sort of gathering in opposition to the status quo. And that's what's happening now. Whereas if we could include everybody in the same way that the inclusion of let's call it queer culture, LGBTQ as a generalized thing, into mainstream society has actually led to a softening of some of the more detrimental elements to the average male. You know what I mean? We saw this thing of a wave, they called it the wave of metrosexuality for a while in the sort of 2010s, so around that sort of period of time. And I think that consequently, the idea of gender becoming more fluid has allowed us to have more of a reasonable discourse on things. People are not standing from an archaic position that they haven't themselves formulated. They've instead had installed on them by the systems at play, because you're born, you're labeled, you're created, and you're told to manifest and live within that definition and within that confined. Whereas I think that by truly ending the war on drugs and actually then recognizing that the only reason the small minority, and it is a small minority globally of people that end up using drugs problematically, despite what the media will present to you, is underlying trauma. Gabor Mate, the wonderful psychiatrist, I can't remember where he's from, but he worked a lot in Toronto, and he said that when seeing chronic patients that they couldn't otherwise stabilize other than giving them the drug, that he arrived at the notion of, I'm asking the wrong question. Not why the drug abuse, not why the manifestations of the symptom, but what is the trauma that's causing this? And once you can actually recognize it, that this brings me all the way back to the point of the Venus Project, which is if we lift everybody up, we stop generational traumatizing parents that are then in poverty, that are coming home after working 90 hours a week, screaming at their kids because they've got no temper and they're starving because they've fed their kid 5 nights a week and they haven't eaten for 3. That are stressing over paying the bills, but have got to make Christmas look nice for Instagram. You know what I mean? These paradigms and these prisons that have created through capitalists' desire to wring out every little bit of us that they can monetize, that they can commodify, that they can co-opt and steal. But they can't steal community. They can't steal and commodify camaraderie. They can't buy our desire to get together and be sweaty and take drugs in a field, to smoke joints in a cafe in cultures all over the world, to dance hysterically by fires. You know, you can't criminalize human nature and our desire, our innate realization that occurs to us in what the Zen Buddhists call satori, that brief enlightenment, realization of self, that you are for a moment alive. And I'm buzzing actually thinking of that experience. Like I'm literally, the hairs on my arms are standing up, because that's humanity. That is distilled down into a bottle, liquid life. And I think that if we can remind ourselves of that, and again, through that curiosity, welcome each other's difference rather than being offended and worried that, does that mean that I'm wrong? None of us are wrong, you beautiful fuckers out there. None of you are wrong. There is no right answers. This is the thing of it. This is not math. There are no right answers in life. The people that are telling you they're lying. They are lying, pure and simple, and just find their motivation and their reason. And most of it will come down to money, greed, and the fact that they think we live in a finite system, when if we rejig, we don't need certain compounds that we use within culture and society and chemicals and things, but we can replace them. As we were saying about batteries, We do not need.
You don't even need certain industries and certain jobs and certain things like that. There's so many jobs and you know, industries and things that are only there to support the monetary system. They are not actually working on making a quality of life better, working on making the planet better. They're just literally there to support the monetary system, you know, and there's so many people that are in jobs that they don't like, you know, just to survive and things like that. There's a lot of things that we could cut out, you know, just there to free up people's lives to spend time, you know, on what they want to spend, you know, spend their time on. But you know, obviously, you know, as a mayor or someone trying to do this, again, you're not just, it's not just saying, okay, rip money out, you know, but it's starting instead to put quality of life in and to start to put people and the planet at the center of how you operate your society, whether it's a mayor operating the society of their city, or again, you know, a governor or something like that, and then, you know, reaching out to like-minded people. But there's so much that can be done, and a monetary system, even, like I said, because, you know, there's monetary system operation basically all over the world, but there's 258 countries, and they operate from very social, you know, very social type systems all the way to very capitalistic of the you know, the monetary system. And I think it's really important to take a look at these areas that have already solved a lot of issues, you know, and people don't even know, they don't know that they've solved issues. They don't know that there's countries where there's like basically no crime at all. Like, you know, there's no homelessness, there's nobody's hungry, you know, they all go to school, they all have health insurance. You know, like where my husband is from Slovenia originally. He was born there, and Slovenia is wonderful the way that they operate you know, things. Of course, you know, they will say there needs to be improvement, because there can always be improvement. We're not going to hit a point where we're like, oh, okay, now we can't improve anymore. That's just, it's not a thing. But we can eradicate these crazy, you know, pressing issues. They have you know, amazing healthcare for everyone there. You know, the poor thing, you know, and he was looking at me when I was going through my health stuff, like, you know, whoa, because that's just like wouldn't happen there. You know, they have great schooling for everyone. In fact, you can go to Slovenia to go to school for free, even if you don't live in Slovenia. They have basically no homelessness at all. The only that they have really is like you were talking about, some people choose that they want to be like nomadic or whatever, but their government like still gives them a building. Like they have a whole like area where that like it's just theirs, and you know, they kind of take it over and put art, and they don't have to, you know, pay for it or whatever. Or sometimes people bring people from other countries like in the capital, like just to kind of panhandle some and stuff like that, but that's not like people from there. And they have you know, a lot of regulations, like they have water, protecting clean water as a right in their constitution, like clean water access for all of their people, you know, and so they have a lot of really just progressive, you know, stuff there, and they do in a lot of countries. You know, they do in a lot of countries. And even here, you know, in our states and our different cities, you know, you can see just, again, like mayors and governors and stuff that are putting stuff in their own cities and their own states here in the United States, that they're starting to make these improvements, where they're starting to try to decriminalize things, you know, and they're starting to try to do, I have like mayors for universal health care, where it's like mayors that like are trying to get it even just in their city, you know, and come together, and mayors for universal income, and, you know, just different things like that. You know, so.
I think, yeah, as you say, change is happening thick and fast. I think the constraints and the restrictions that are created by the imagined lines of nation states that is then unfortunately permeated over into the internet. So I can't read news from Canada, for example. You know, there's a lot of things that, obviously VPNs, obviously everyone out there, make sure you're using a VPN wherever you can. The systems, it's almost like it's so pervasive. It is such a thick and corrosive tar-like substance that sticks to everything, blocking out the light of hope of future, that it seeps into every facet of human life.
Yeah.
But I think that because of the internet, because of this interconnectivity, because of the fact that we can have a real-time conversation across the body of the Atlantic and touch wood, fingers crossed, with no technical issues, it is a measure of all right, it's back to the same problem that we've bullet pointed time and time again, logistics. We have the knowledge and the awareness, but because of the artificial bottlenecks created by vested interests, people who they have more than they've ever had. And unfortunately, I don't mean to sound classist in this, but a lot of it often comes from the ruling class of people that they're born into. They never know hunger, they never know poverty. So then the world that they create and they're allowed to create is only limited from their vision. There is no homeless. I don't see homeless. There is no racism. I don't see racism. There is no. And so the world represents to look more and more like them. Whereas if we had that far more, to use a dirty word, I suppose, at the minute, a democratic approach to it. And if we had a true proportional representation of individual communities and the acceptance, because this is the other thing with that homelessness, that there are a lot of homeless people who choose to be homeless because living in a home means sobriety. They'd rather be on their street or even loss of dogs or things like that. So there's loads of stories of people that have then refused time and time again because they'd be forced to go sober and they'd lose a dog and they'd die on the streets. And the papers will then get a hold of it. Oh, isn't this a sad story? More for the dog than anything else, because that's the way the British media works. But it's all back to that thing of logistics. We have enough knowledge. We have enough compassion and love. It's oozing out of the number of guests I've had on this that are literally just like, we need to put you on totems. People just need to come and tap into you and just feel that energy and just get revitalized, re-energized, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, how the internet can empower us to do that. So I hope in some small way this conversation has been meaningful to you fine folk out there. It's definitely been meaningful to me. So I just want to say thank you very much for giving me your time, Jenniffer. It's thanks
for having me. It was a nice conversation.
It was great. I'm sorry I'm having to wrap. I've got somewhere else to be. But it's, again, thank you very much for making the time for this. I just actually want to ask you a question that I've kind of just remembered that I've not asked the last two guests. See, the loss of Macca has messed my head up. But normally, the end of the thing, I ask, what does the future hold for you? So I suppose that'll be the final question.
Thanks for asking. Again, right now the immediate future is, just a lot of focus on this campaign, obviously, for the next 7 months. So, we'll see. So if I'm fortunate enough to obtain the position, then a lot of work and a lot of collaborating. We have a Center for Scientific Solutions proposal on our platform here for the campaign. So it would really be, what that is going to be is taking the experts that we have here in the city and taking experts that are, in the nation and country that want to help, and combining all of them to where it's literally going to be like, okay, we have 77,000 people in our city, and what are their issues? Like, how many of them are homeless? How many of them have housing insecurity? Because you may have a house, but maybe it's still, you're sleeping on someone's couch. Maybe the house is not clean or safe. Maybe all the way to maybe you want to own your house. And so laying this out, how many of these people need this? How many need new pipes? How many need this? Because there's lead in the pipes or something like that. And just this whole center is going to be completely focused around problem solving. So, so if I do get the position, it's going to be that, and if not, then the same thing that we've been doing is just activism, and my husband and I, we have our own business. We work on houses and things, restoring houses, and or renovating, not that much restoration, but renovation, and things like that. So, we'll just keep working and just keep activism as much as we can, trying to get word out about, different things and just that, and continually educating my own self, as much as I can. And I'm very, one of my biggest passions really is trying to help get information out about a better world, and also about, especially in regards to our health, really how much value cannabis actually has. Just getting all that information around. I was glad that you brought up Israel, because there really is a lot of research coming out of Israel. It's really, really very, very, very interesting. If I have that correctly, I think they started investigating cannabis for autism in their autism and maybe epilepsy. I think those were the two original ones they started looking into. And now as I know of it last, I think that every man, woman, and child in Israel gets a medical cannabis card now automatically, because they really realized, and I think they're the only country that's doing that. Because they really realized the value of it. For everyone. I double check on that, because I think I was watching a documentary on Netflix called Weed the People, which was in regard to, medical stories and stuff like that. So I think that's where I saw it, that they now have it like that, so just a lot of the same thing I've been doing. It's just, I'm just doing the same things that I've been doing all these years. It's just through a mayoral run into the mix.
Yeah, you really went and decided to go, life's not hectic enough. Let's put everything under a microscope and run to somebody else's beat. Yeah.
Our friend was like, why don't you run for mayor? And I was like, what? Politics? Why would I want to do that? I'm like, oh my goodness. Then I thought about it more and more. And I talked about it with my husband. And it really is this, we have to try. We have to kind of get over our fears of these kind of things, that only a certain type of person that doesn't care and is greedy and this and that can try. And, people will be looking at my life, they look at that for activism anyway. They look at that for stuff. So we just have to try, and again, of course, obviously, hopefully, I will obtain the position, but, if not, it's not. I'm still working on all the same stuff that I would be working on. This is just a path that, instead of always trying to reach the politicians, maybe I can become the politician and actually, put the stuff in for everybody. So.
Excellent. Well, I wish you all the best of it. Like I said, I will keep our listeners up to date with how sort of things go. And I hope that even in the smallest outcome is that you inspire others locally to be able to go, wait a minute, we can run as independents. That's the biggest thing we all need to remember, because we have a good audience base. I see you out there, folks, in America. Oddly on the coasts. We haven't quite broken into the Midlands, but we'll get there. And so I think we're seeing sort of that evolution, as you were saying, this swing of then the average individual being empowered to suddenly go, I'm somebody. Rather than just sitting there going, we need somebody to do something. It's people like yourselves that have built this body of knowledge and of experience, and have then kind of gone, well, okay, we can reach people and we can keep having the conversations, but at some point we kind of have to take that step. And I think that it's a brilliant thing to do. One of my friends stood in a local constituency in the UK as an independent. I think she came fourth. She beat one of the candidates from one of the major established parties.
Wow.
And she basically just stood on an environmental platform. She ran a cannabis shop, sort of providing like the industrial stuff, and like I said, help hemp mats and like cannabis infused foods and stuff like that. And but it just showed the appetite in the area, rather than them going, drugs, no. Because she showed this merriment of all of these other concepts towards it. And I think now there is an appetite in America where the old stigma of cannabis is disappearing, and hopefully projects like the Venus Project and others can start to look at the potential technological applications of cannabis, graphene, concrete as a building material, bioplastics and things like that, because America has a chance to really create a global industry that doesn't necessarily have to be globalized.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They can kickstart a revolution of localized empowerment, because this plant will grow everywhere. She is called weed for a reason. She loves to be here. She wants us to access it. So just let us have it. And I think that, hopefully.
And there's, it's in the Bible, for goodness sake. It's the anointing oil. The recipe is an accident.
The cannabis oil,
Yeah, cannabis. So this is 9 pounds that they used in the anointing oil. 9 pounds, which is the one that I used for treatment in Denver was 1 pound. So it was 9 times as effective as the thing that 9 times, the thing that got rid of all this unhealthy tissue in 3 months. So there's a lot to it.
That's about, I think, 5 keys, 4 and a bit, 5 kilos for any of majority of our European listeners. And frankly, I think the rest of the world. The rest of the world. I'm using the American standards. It's all right. We're really weird in the UK. We still use like miles per hour instead of kilometers and stuff like that. Yeah, in other ways we use centimeters, and we can't quite make up our minds yet. We're working on it. We bridge the gap between you guys over here and the rest of Europe going, what the hell is this? Yeah. But thanks for having me. And, again, just, I know I do want to encourage people to run independent, or it doesn't, you don't have to be independent. You can run with a party, but people that really care, that want to make change, because, you try, yes, is it hard? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's hard. There's a lot of stuff that's hard, whatever. And you may get it, or you may not get it for all your efforts. But like you said, you can reach people, get them thinking, hey, how come, even if you get them thinking, why aren't the other politicians talking about this? Why aren't they talking about getting me a house? Why aren't they talking about getting me food? Why aren't they talking about this kind of stuff? Just to start. And if you don't get it the first time, then you take a look at, what happened and try to reassess and see, maybe you get it the next time, or or something like that. So if people can, I did notice there seems to be a pretty good surge too, and it could just be because we have more internet, we're able to see it more, but a surge, it seems like, of people around the world that are running for office that are caring more and more, which is nice. Yeah, it's definitely a trend I want to see continue into 2022. Yeah. Well, excellent. For, like, say, anybody interested in learning more, check out Jar for Mayor. That's JAH for mayor.com. Also, thevenusproject.com. I'll be including links to both and probably to the most recent Venus Project documentary, which is well worth a watch. I'll also include this Forbes article about cloud seeding for you fine folks. If you've enjoyed this, if you enjoy any of this content, as always, please check us out on patreon.com/Simpa Life and help me keep the lights on and pay for all the little bells and whistles we've got going on behind the scenes for this little project. Find us everywhere on social media at Simpa Life. See you fine folks next week. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever you need to do on your platforms, and let's grow a little. Let's grow a little.
Let's grow a lot.
Yeah. Thanks, Jenniffer.